So Bastien Guerry is from the DINUM, which is the services of the Prime Minister for the digital transformation. And Leonardo Favario made the trip from Rome. He's from the Ministry of, what do you say in English?
Digital transformation.
Again, digital transformation, fantastic. We found the standard. It's Harris and Leonardo.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So, okay, so in this last obstacle, not really the last, almost last obstacle between you and pictures and then lunch, we would like to have a point of view on what the public administration is doing about software, about source code, about open source. What is the strategy? And again, why supporting for the DINUM or be interested in for Italian ministry in this initiative, which is software today. But let's start from the general point of view. What about software? What about open source in public administration? And maybe, Bastien, if you want to start, and feel free to speak in French.
M'entendez bien?
Thank you. Can you hear me? Thank you very much, Roberto, for inviting me to take the floor. I just give you, to start with a small story. I remember it was in this room, approximately 10 years ago, Michael Art took the floor. I think you probably all remember him. He created the Gutenberg project. It started 50 years ago. He wrote the Declaration of Independence on a computer, which was open sourced, and many digital scribes joined him and started putting world literature onto this site. And today we have millions of scribes who are actually producing the software, producing these platforms that allow us to share knowledge in the 21st century. And this project, your project, Software Heritage, is part of that entire story. Michael Art was a leader, but Software Heritage is also a leader. You're a pioneer, you are leaders to show us what we can do in this area. So for me, it's a great pleasure to be here, but also as a representative of my ministry to say how useful it is for us to be part of Software Heritage.
So why does public administration decide to publish its source codes? Well, it's because of a strategy that was rolled out and supported by a 2016 Act. So now all public website source code is made available. And the slogan that we just mentioned is now the slogan of Germany and the Avenir coalition that commits to use a more open software. And this is also what underpins the ministry's strategy on open resources and software, with the use of more open software within public administration. This is already in law, but we need to take things further. And also what's important is for us as public administrators to attract talents, digital talents, through the combined values that public service and open software share. So why are we publishing source codes? Well, we do so to ensure transparency, and so that citizens understand in a transparent manner how our public IT systems work. We also consider that the more we publish, the better collaboration there will be between ministries. To give you an example, to simplify the way we reach out to our French citizens in simple French, well, we don't have any tools to support our local administrations to make administrative lingo easier to understand. And so we have that type of tool for accessibility for people with disabilities, but we lack those tools for a version of simple French, and administration, various local administrations and ministries are working together to make this possible and make it more widely available throughout the public service. And the third idea is to attract talent. So how do we publish? Well, we don't have a centralized system to disseminate source code. It's because that's the way it was organically built over time, and we don't have the means to centralize everything. But we believe that each administration is in a better position to know where to publish, whether it be on GitHub, GitLab, or if they want to develop their own system. And our role will be to inform local administration and ministries on the choices they have. Of course, today, well, that choice is a bit of a choice by default, but our idea is that it should be better informed choices in the future to ensure greater sovereignty vis-à-vis platforms. And we publish on Source Hut, which is a very small scale system, but which is in line with our values. So there's the issue of subsidiarity, but so each administration can choose what to use, but the idea is to ensure that source code and the information is persistent and always available, and we can't ask GitHub or GitLab to be available 24/7. And so this is an area where we're working hard to ensure continuity. So with subsidiarity, the subsidiarity principle, there's the issue of discovering the various source codes, and this is why we have the code.gov.fr platform, which gives an opportunity to navigate the various source codes. So we have around 18 source code deposits made available on this platform. So to wrap up, we've been sponsoring for 2 years this initiative. We want to continue this support in the future because we believe that beyond the tip of the iceberg, that our interactions with software heritage have opened us doors into the treasure trove of all these tools, and we want to continue contributing and having access to all that, and call upon us all to contribute to the building of this treasure trove and its use, the creation of this ecosystem. What may seem slightly anecdotal, but which is nevertheless important, we were a very small team, and our discussions and our work at Software Heritage with Software Heritage teams really helped us be more responsive and react faster. So it was very beneficial. There were many Antoines in Software Heritage team, and so we recruited someone called Antoine too to make sure that communication was easy. But joke aside, we're extremely happy with this collaboration. It's key to ensuring accountability of public service. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your intervention. Leonardo? No.
thanks for taking the time to travel here from Rome and carry the word from Italy. It's a pleasure to listen to you if you want to tell us a little bit more about what is going on in my home country. Maybe.
Hopefully it will be good news. So good morning, everyone. I'll switch to English, pardon me. My French is a little bit rusty. So it's great to be the last speaker, I guess, because I can, I wouldn't say steal, but I would say take advantage of what many other speakers said before me. So I will stick very, very little, I would say a couple of minutes on the history for what concerns free and open source software in Italy. So as Bastien said, and correct me if I'm wrong, you said 2016, right? The first, okay. So our law, the primary law, let's say, we have a law that says that it's called the Code for Digital Administration. And it was made in 2005, so it's quite a lot of time ago. And the main law mainly about tells public administrations that they have to choose free and open source software as a preference on top of every other software. So you might think, okay, 2005, that's a lot of time ago. What happened? Did it work or not? Not really. So that was one of the issues that in 2016, when I was called the digital transformation team was created in the government, we started to tackle. We say, why it didn't work, right? So it's a primary law. It tells public administration what they have to do in their acquisition phase, and when they are acquiring a new piece of software, and so we started, in an iterative way to have a conversation with them, and we understood that that was very high level. I mean, the abstraction of the law was incredibly high, so that it was very difficult to put it in action, to translate whatever the law was mandating into practical actions. So that's why we started to, in a very small team, to work on what we call the guidelines. So it's just a way to translate what the primary norm mandates into some practical action, practical guides. So we started drafting the document that was published in 2019, so not that much time ago, and this started to help. Public administration started to understand what they had to do. Mostly 15 years later than the law was made. So I would say that our strategy right now in Italy for concern free and open source software is mainly based on 3 pillars. I call them pillars. The first one is, again, law, in the primary law that mandates what you have to do as a public administration. The second one, I'm going to switch it off because the second one is guidelines, is tools that from a central government we provide to public administrations. And the third one that I heard many times in this conversation this morning is community, of course. So we need cooperation. Free and open source software is about cooperation, is about sharing not only code, but knowledge and so on. So we need to establish a way so that communities are formed and then maintained over time. So these are the 3 pillars. I told you about law. I told you about the guidelines. Now I'm going to briefly tell you about the third one, the last one, the community side. So again, as part of the government, we created some I would say, communities. One is called developers.italia.it. The other one is called designers.italia.it. And the idea is exactly this one. So create a place where public administrators, citizens, and service providers are able to join, are able to meet, are able to start a conversation and share as much as possible. This is starting to work in the way we expected. We have sort of 10,000 people on our forums, and we have some chat channels, so synchronous and asynchronous conversation are going on. But the next big challenge, and I think this is particularly true for Italy and potentially also for other places, especially in Europe, is what we call the next generation EU, so what was called the recovery fund. Why is that? Mainly because there's gonna be a huge amount of money to be spent in developing infrastructure, and in this case, I mean, in our particular case, digital infrastructures. So we must be very aware of the fact that that code has to be published as free and open source as soon as possible, but not just published. We have to think and start with a open by design approach, So it's something that us, from a central government, we are trying to I can't say force, of course, but we are trying to make other public administration understand, so that this will really turn into a real good investment. Many people ask us, especially from the public sector, what does an investment mean? Basically in the private sector, it's quite easier to explain. It's about, buying something that can, can be your asset. And then hopefully one day you want to spend and to sell that asset for a higher price than what you paid for. For what concerns public administration, it's not exactly like that. You can spend money, and hopefully you will test your citizens in order to see if their satisfaction rate is higher, or if you got exactly to the right point. I think that for what concerns software, especially again for the digital infrastructure, we need to spend public money in order to produce public code, but mostly in order to multiply the return of investment. What do I mean? Basically, if you spend a lot of money, then you produce a lot of, I would call it proprietary software. You're just, producing a lot of lock-in, and you're just probably making some of the vendors on the market be happy for a small amount of time. But if you invest public money, you release everything you do, the next investment is going to be involved in creating new innovation based on the solid foundation of the investment you made before. So you see, this is what I think is the return of investment for what concerns software, especially for what concerns free and open source software, being able to concentrate your effort on producing innovation based on the investment made to create the foundation, create solid foundation, create the infrastructure, roads and bridges, and then you can build services on top. So again, I'm gonna finish with a little history here, a little story regarding again our archives and again in 2005, as I told you before, we had this law, and so public administration started to share code. How did they do it? They did it using a centralized repository. So they sent some compressed and zip files, and someone from a central authority was storing them. At some point, that repository started to have some faults, and eventually it ceased to exist. So all that amount of software that was meant to be reused by other administrations was not available anymore. So what we did in the last couple of years was creating a new catalog, because discoverability of free and open source software, especially for public administration, is still an issue right now in Italy. So we build a catalog, and we build it in a decentralized fashion in order to, as Bastien said before, and the approach you're using in France is interesting, because you don't want to force administration to use your repository. You are telling them, use whatever you want. We are going to harvest the information and then publish them on top of the catalog. But that's just the first step. I think that what you're doing with software is the next step, right? To make sure that whatever stays on those repositories will still be accessible, browsable, and usable in the future to come. So I think that we have to do this next step, integrate the pipelines, the harvesting pipelines into maybe publishing on top of software heritage, and that would be, closing the circle. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Leonardo, for this very insightful presentation. So we are almost on time. So basically what comes next, and it is a closing moment of this event, is a very short presentation in 5 minutes of key moments in the history in the last 5 years of software heritage. So while waiting for the techniques to go up, hoping this will work properly, I would just like to add a few moments of thanking people around the table here. First of all, After thanking all the team that helped us working on all this, I will really say a big thank you to Jean-François Abramatic, which is hiding back in the room right there. He was a person who actually advised me and helped us find the first sponsor. He was a bridge to go and talk in Redmond to people in Microsoft. With him, we spent time going around California, when here in France, the original people we contacted told us, that's an not Inria, of course, I'm talking about industry, okay? Told us, that's an interesting project. Go in the US and see if they find it interesting, and maybe we'll have a look at it. I mean, and again, so this is, I mean, it was a very funny time, and he keeps spending time trying to advise us. So thanks a lot, Jean-François, for all your time in this. Another big thanks I would like to extend to the people from the HAL repository. This is a national open access repository. It was started 20 years ago. By the way, happy anniversary, because it is 20 years for you. Only 5 for us. We are the younger kids in town. We hope to grow older like you, because we started a collaboration without any formal agreement whatsoever a few years ago. And this is what actually is opening the door to depositing research software in a curated way, which is one of the pillars for the open science approach here in France. We hope to see generalized in different areas. Then it would be too long to make a list. I'm just making time, right? So see if this works. It would be too long to make the list of all the people collaborating here, but let me just say how happy we all are to see the community growing. In this room, you see many of the new ambassadors. You see many of the people in the company that helped us extend the coverage of software edge. This was done through small grants by the Sloan Foundation and the Net Foundation, but actually what they did is much more than the small amount of money that they got. And so a big thanks to all of you for the time, the effort, and passion you have shared with us in developing the new functionalities of this archive. So are we ready to make this work? Crossing our finger? So let's try to see 5 years of software heritage in 5 minutes.